Hey guys, thanks for watching this video on YouTube. I just want to jump in and say that if you are not following the Work Awesome Network on all social media platforms, I highly encourage that. It's the place to get updates on blog posts, on new episodes, on basically anything related to the Work Awesome Network. So jump over to wherever you get your content from: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're on all the platforms. If you are interested, we also publish these same episodes on audio platforms, so you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. So if you would rather listen to this in an audio format in the car, on the way to work, in the office, I encourage you to jump over to those audio platforms and listen there. I also want to say, if you're interested in learning about the company behind the Work Awesome Network, AVIAN, you can jump over to the AVIAN website at avian.com, AVIAN.com. Thanks again for watching this video. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. It helps the video out. It helps it get in front of more people. Thank you again. And now back to this episode. Welcome to the Work Awesome Podcast. This is episode 7. Post-pandemic work life. So this is a major topic right now. We're actually on the cusp, it seems like, and maybe that might not be true, but I'm crossing my fingers. We're on the cusp of going back to some sort of normalcy, which means that this post-pandemic work life is right around the corner. So today I have Megan and Valerie with me to talk about this exciting topic. It's pretty relevant to what's going on. Megan, as we know, is the recruiter at AVIAN, or one of our recruiters at AVIAN, working on a team of 2. I am our integrated marketing and communication specialist. And then Valerie works, I'm going to say this, but I know, Val, you're going to explain it further. In our system, you're listed as a senior program analyst. Now, with AVIAN, because as I've mentioned before, we are a government contractor, that could mean a lot of different things for our company. That's kind of just the title that is given to you because of the type of work that you do, or the type of customer that you have, I guess. So, Val, if you want to explain further, I'll quickly just say you are in communications specifically, but take a quick minute to talk about that role and what you do for the company.
No problem. I am part of the AIMS team, which is the communications team sector of AVIAN. I work for a government program, and I do communication specialist, kind of a jack of all trade. I do newsletters, I do internal, external communications. I also do design work for the Navy and wall art, museum quality wall art decorations or displays within the program office.
I think that perfect. So as you just demonstrated, yes, your official title in the AVIAN system is senior program analyst, but your working title is, I would say, senior communications specialist, or senior what is it? How do we say that here? Multimedia. Is that
multimedia? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few different titles that get thrown around, but they all fall under AIMS, which is, as Valerie said, the AVIAN Information and Multimedia Services division, I guess, of AVIAN. So that's a great team. That's actually where I started. So awesome, love it. And I think I mentioned this before, I started on base and then made my way over to the corporate team. So quick description of this episode: when it's time to go back to the office, work life might be a bit different. Fan of snow days. Now we're all pro teleworkers. No space to have a meeting. Take it virtual. In this episode, we'll make some hypotheses of how a post-pandemic work life might look. So I might be completely honest with you guys and our audience. I didn't write down questions for this one because I feel like this conversation is going to be pretty natural for us. So where do you want to start? Val, I know we were quickly, before we started recording, talking about kind of workspaces. So I think that would be a great place to start. Even before the pandemic, there were these shared workspaces. Val has a list of a couple of the actual branded names of them. But the idea is that you can basically rent out space for like a monthly subscription, go to that workspace, work out of there. I definitely agree that is going to become like a booming industry after the pandemic. Maybe not so much during the pandemic because of just the hygiene aspect of it, having to clean the spaces so much and maybe that's built into that subscription. But after the pandemic, when people are used to working in different spaces, I see a lot of people desiring to have like that ability to pretty much go where they want to go. So, Val, I know you had some thoughts on that. What do you think?
I absolutely. I heard uh, uh, somebody talking about moving back into the spaces, and my own office space has done a poll within our office space, and like 10% of the people wanted to go back full time. 75% wanted some sort of hybrid, go in 1, maybe 2 days a week. And so we really have to, I think businesses and companies and are just going to have to adapt. They're going to have to change their workspaces, the way have meeting rooms, have conference rooms, have extensive communication tools built into their companies to allow for this. We all recognize that there are certain things that just have to be done in person or are just done better in person. Brainstorming, new hires, training somebody on methods and procedures, mentoring even, are really done better in person, one-on-one. So I think the physical spaces in offices are going to change.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I've heard rumblings of program offices already doing this. And it actually started before the pandemic. And then the pandemic kind of kicked it into high gear,
Mm-hmm.
where, again, along the same lines as those rented workspaces, you have a common space that you rotate where you actually are. So one day you might be, I don't, this is, again, a hypothesis. One day you might be sitting at a desk and working from a desk by a window. The next day you might be standing at a standing desk and working in a completely different section of your office. Again, I think being able to move around even in the same building is going to be something that a lot of people are going to desire after working from home, and being able to sit at the couch or sit at your kitchen table or anywhere in your house, and do the work that you need to get done, and realize, oh, I don't have to be in an office chair at a desk that has my name on it, type of thing. So, Megan, any more thoughts?
I think so. Like Sarah and I, my other teammate, we share our room. So on Mondays, Wednesdays, and her Fridays at work, she comes in the office, and on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and my Friday to work, I come in the office. So I think that could qualify to a shared space that people are going to continue to do. But even from a recruiting aspect, when before COVID hit, people were asking to telework. That's just something that people want to do. They just want to be home. It's easier for a lot of people, especially those who are commuting. And now it's even more. Every person I talk to, they're like, all right, is this offering telework? Does this offer remote work? So I think having, like you were saying, Val, some sort of flexibility of, maybe 1 to 2 days, like that's probably going to have to be something that after a year now, it's been a year of getting used to that, people are going to want. And I think people are going to have to adjust. Companies are going to have to adjust to that.
Absolutely. My husband told me just this morning that he, on CNN, they were announcing, or one of the news broadcasts he was watching, where a third of the people that were polled said that if it was 100% going into the office, they would quit their jobs and look elsewhere. A third. That kind of blew my mind away. However, so many people. However, I don't think a post-pandemic workplace is going to be 100% virtual.
No.
I think people have recognized the need for social, and how much work really gives them that social need, that interaction need with other people.
Yeah. Like you're saying, there's a lot of things missing from a virtual work life still. So, for example, we had a meeting this morning, and Megan, I think you were on that meeting, where Dan was talking about being able to communicate in the hallway and just have that short hallway conversation, and how that led to actually hiring somebody for the company. Things that we wouldn't do. We use Teams as a company. We wouldn't just use Teams to be like, hey, just want to talk to you for 5 minutes. Like that just doesn't happen. Usually if you're at home, you're probably like at home. I'm like clinking my water bottle. I'm sorry. You're usually at home, not talking to, not talking to other people in the hallway unless it's like your husband or your dog or something.
I think it's also a mental health thing. I think not to be the bummer, but the suicide rates during quarantine went up significantly because people just not having a human interaction. So while I understand because I know for me teleworking is nice because I'm like, oh, I can roll right out of bed. I don't need to get dressed. I don't need to do anything if I don't want to.
You
Then I can
lose
just
the
start my day.
commute, you gain
Exactly.
hours in your hours time
Yep.
in your life.
Yeah, but I also know, as a mom and I have a 3-year-old, I'm like, go to daycare. I want to go home. I want to go to work. I want to get out of the office today because you're driving me nuts and I hate being home sometimes. So I think being able to have that flexibility of both where you can, and if you have a really busy day where it's going to save you time and you have all these meetings instead of going into the office, maybe that's just a day that it's appropriate to stay home. And if you have more, downtime and then you come into the office. So I think having that flexibility is good for the company, it's good for people's mental health. It's just going to be all around better if that's something that companies can adjust to.
Talking about like the commute time and all of that, I completely out of the blue didn't even relate this until just now. Actually had a friend from high school post that like I grew up in Delaware, so a lot of the jobs were either in Wilmington, which is a city of Delaware, or you would travel further to Philadelphia, which is it's still just a highway trip away, but still a pretty large commute. He actually lives in, I believe, like the mid part of Delaware. So his commute was like an hour and a half to 2 hours every day, one way. So he was looking at 3 hours per day, and he was doing the math, and I don't exactly remember what the final total was, but he put down how many days of time he saved and he was able to spend with his family by not having to make that commute to work every day. So something super powerful, which just comes back to numbers and figuring out, hey, I'm saving 600 hours a year and being able to spend that with my 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and kind of really have that family presence again.
And think of the financial savings.
Yeah.
You're not paying for gas, and time
Wear
is
on
money.
your car.
The wear on
exactly.
your car.
And that's something that we actually, and again, just citing some news sources, I guess, and I don't have any specific ones, but like when the pandemic first started, we immediately saw postings of like, hey, this is what Beijing looked like pre-pandemic. This is now what Beijing looks like, and it's like the smog, just not immediately, but it began to clear up, and you began to really see this really noticeable difference of people not traveling as much. So there's a lot of repercussions that we began to saw right away that we probably didn't even think about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The financial positives from telework and the going back and forth your time that you get back is incredible and important. And as you said, Megan, very mentally, it's your mental health, and that's very important.
So I think we all agree that post-pandemic, there's probably going to be some virtual aspect to it. There's going to be extreme flexibility in working schedules, making sure that you can work pretty much, I would assume, from wherever you want. There's been times during the pandemic where like I realized, oh, we're working virtually. So there was a time when actually I got this new MacBook and I was like, oh, I, again, grew up in Delaware. If you don't know, Delaware's tax-free, so I ship very expensive things like MacBooks to my mom's house, so I don't have to pay tax on them. I hope I don't get in trouble for that in some way. But so I was able to leave Maryland the night after I worked the entire day, went to Delaware, picked this up, worked from Delaware the next day because we're virtual. Like, we can go on vacation and work half days now if we wanted to, and then spend the rest of the day on the beach or wherever we are. And it's afforded us some really nice things that, speaking of mental health, yes, the suicide rate went up, but there's been some really nice things that can help us overcome some of those mental health issues as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually going to Florida at the end of this month and then again in July. And I was like, oh, I can just take my laptop. I don't have to, not work if I don't want to and use the PTO. So I'm like, I could work a day or, if I want to take the time, I can. But it's not like I'm tied down to my office and I can't work if I'm gone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there are some of those large companies that have decided, oh, when the pandemic's over, we're still going to be I want to say 100% telework is what some of these news headlines say. I don't know exactly what that means because obviously there needs to be some sort of corporate office building. But I believe Shopify is one of those companies that said, hey, we realize that we can do this without being in the office. You guys are free to work from wherever you want in the world, which is interesting because I don't know how business licenses work that way, but that's a whole legal route that I'm not willing to go down.
My daughter, 100% telework. Her
Yeah.
job. She got a promotion, and as a manager, she's 100% telework, and it's incredible. But she is also another. She doesn't have kids yet. She doesn't
Right.
have the things that typically tie you to one place. So, it's attracting. If you're trying to attract young millennials or young, even straight out of college employees, you're gonna have to offer the telework.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we drove the telework point home.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some innovation. So innovation was really cool because, and I don't know if you guys realize this, but like Microsoft Teams, for example, or even Zoom, any of these platforms that we use for teleworking, they weren't making a ton of progress before the pandemic. And then all of a sudden we were forced to work at home and they're like, oh, we should probably jump on this. So when the pandemic first started, getting on Microsoft Teams was a real pain, and it didn't have a very user-friendly interface. There was a lot of questions going around about it. Pretty much monthly, I would even venture out to say weekly now, there's updates that just keep improving how that works. So innovation, I think, has changed for the better because these companies are like, oh, we actually need to work on these tools that are going to make work easier for folks. Any other tools that you started using or improved upon during the pandemic?
Actually, I'm almost 100% Teams because the Navy has bought into Teams. But there are other programs called ClickUp or Monday.com. They're new, innovative, they're collaborative, and they take your documents and your spreadsheets and they do goal tracking and they give you a resource storage and inbox, all your inbox, and you can communicate with a group and it'll send out a group email. So there are other platforms out there. But I think they're all driving towards the same thing. They realize that what is missing is the collaborative aspect of being live, being together with somebody.
Even Adobe has a really nice collaboration tools now, which weren't there before. So again, just really cool innovations coming out of a pandemic. And I think just as we drive that virtual point home, if we're all working virtually, those online collaboration tools become super important to use.
And all your files are saved to the cloud.
Yes,
They're not
exactly.
on a server somewhere that you've got to connect directly to. So
let's talk about culture. Kind of feeds into the virtual a little bit. Actually, no. Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about company events. Where do you see company events going? So for Avian specifically, we again went to a virtual platform where we found, I don't know exactly what the name of the company was, but we found a company that would host virtual events through Zoom. They were like trivia events, or there was a whole laundry list of like holiday events that we did. So we were still able to send out this mass meeting maker and say, hey, we have spots for like 60, I don't remember the exact number, but like 60 people. If you're interested in doing Halloween trivia or Christmas trivia or whatever, you still have that opportunity to see other folks that you work with face to face on the computer and have some fun during the evening. In the future, where do you see company events going?
I see it staying as both. Hopefully, I think that there will still be some things that we can do virtually. Unfortunately, I don't think COVID's ever going to go away. I think it's going to be like the flu, where it's common, it's something that just stays and it keeps growing. So I think it's going to be another thing that's going to be around, and we can't live under a rock or in quarantine forever. That's the reality. So I think still being able to be safe, there will be some events and some things that we can do virtually. But I do think as people get more brave, like I'm still safe when I go out, but I can't live in the house for the rest of my life
Right.
either. So, I'm still taking precautions when I'm leaving, but at the same time, it is important to still have those human interactions, like you were saying, Val. So I think maybe like our, I don't know, our company, like Christmas events or something like that could still be in person. If there still needs to be the precautions by the time that comes, then that's fine. But I think maybe just a good share of both. I think it's really
Yeah.
going to be, everything's going to be split, because it's just the norm of life,
Yep.
to maintain that balance.
Yeah, I agree mostly with that statement. I truly believe that the interaction we get from work, we are going to start blending our work and our home life more and more and more. There will be, if you're a company that really wants to build ownership and pride and belonging in your company, you're going to have a big and small social events that are open. If you want to come. If you don't want to come, we understand. I envision meetings and conferences being a big television where you're going to have people in the room. And then you're going to have people on the little boxes on the television. The little monitors in rooms are not going to work. You're going to want to feel like you're interacting with those people who are not there in order to build a team, to build an ownership.
Yeah. I definitely agree with both of what you're saying. I think it's going to be this mixed bag of doing still virtual events and then doing in-person events. And maybe those in-person events are smaller teams now. So instead of the entire company getting together for a holiday party, maybe it's just the communication. Well, communication falls under HR here. So maybe it's just the HR team going out for a holiday celebration or something like that.
Which we've done.
We've definitely done. So I agree with what you're saying, both of you. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I think we're talking about changes in the way we're going in the future. And we talk about the office space and we talk about the social aspect of it. But I think we're going to see a change in management,
Yes.
in the way people manage other people, and a shift from I saw John. Everyone has that one guy in the office that's there at 4:00 in the morning
Yes.
and doesn't leave until the boss leaves.
Yes.
I think that is going to change. I think we're going to be evaluated on what we do rather than who we are or our personalities. And management is going to have to be trained to quantify their employees rather than I like that guy, and
Yeah. And I think, again, hopefully I'm not spilling too many. That wasn't last episode. The last recording that we did, we talked a little bit about career pathing and how AVIAN is starting to do some very specific laid out career pathing. And with that comes it's basically a rubric of what you need to do to move up in these positions. Again, hopefully I'm not spilling too many beans. I don't think I am because I'm not being super specific. But I think what you're saying is that it's going to be about what you do for the company rather than how much time you put in to it. Not that you shouldn't work your 8-hour day. You should still work your 8-hour day, but maybe it's not that 10, 12, 14-hour day that some people put in.
And I think
And
go ahead.
Megan, I actually believe that you used to be hired, you were the best at what you did, so we're going to make you a manager. But maybe you really didn't have those interpersonal skills. You were really, really good at what you do, and you should be recognized, and you should move up to a higher level within what you do. But are you a management material at that point?
Yep.
Maybe we're going to look for better communicators, people who know how to lead by example.
Yep.
Or coordinate, and I think that is the future. I think
Right.
everyone's always said a leader should be, you should want to follow this leader. But really, it takes two. The leader needs to reach back and communicate. And if you're not there to see that they are what they do, they've got to learn to communicate back to you.
Yeah. And I definitely like the point, Megan, I'll let you make your point in just a second. I definitely like your point about the communication aspect of it. So like a lot of our managers, and I don't want to throw anybody under a bus because everybody that works here is great, but a lot of our managers are technical experts in their fields. That doesn't mean that they know how to, like you're saying, communicate with somebody. So when we're looking at future managers post-pandemic, and communication is such an important aspect of that, knowing how to communicate face-to-face, knowing how to communicate virtually, and use all the tools that are at your disposal. Maybe it's somebody that is really great at managing people and managing the type of work that we're doing, rather than the exact specific, very technical work that our company does in some cases.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I think it's going to build a lot of more individuality, because on top of the schedule, I think, like for me, I always have to pick my daughter up at a certain time, so I have to leave work at a certain time, but I still need to do my 9 hours. So I'm able to work most of my morning, and then once I'm home and she's settled, I typically get on and do another hour or 2 hours, or however long I need it in the afternoon. And at least from a recruiter standpoint, it actually works, because people are off work later in the afternoon anyway.
Yeah.
So where they might not have answered me in the morning, they typically answer me in the afternoon. But that's where that trust and that individuality between my manager and my partner comes in, because it's more so about, I am getting the work done. Does it really matter when? I don't think so, personally. Right. I think it's always been nice to have that flexibility. And then I think that kind of puts the responsibility on the team as well, to build together and to do things together, versus like somebody breathing down your neck all the time and like, having to tell you what to do. I don't think sometimes when you're not pushed, you don't grow as much if you're being constantly guided that way too. So I think it's going to give a lot of different opportunities for growth and just learning opportunities too.
Yeah. I do want to point out, Megan said 9 hours, and that's because we do something called a CWS work schedule. I don't exactly know what
Condensed work schedule.
Condensed work schedule.
So basically means you're off every other Friday, but you got to work 9 hours.
Yes, exactly. So the normal job, unless you want to take those Fridays off, is 8 hours for us. But some of our folks work that CWS schedule so that you have every other Friday off, which does sound pretty appealing for some folks.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's different. I was never used to it, but now I am.
Now you are, yeah. All right, so the last topic I want to quickly talk about is mentoring and coaching. So again, this is something that we probably thought of doing like face-to-face, somebody that was in the same town as you even. Now it can be like literally anybody in the world. Using these virtual tools, we can connect with, this is a very high-level person, but Tony Robbins if we wanted to. We don't have to look specifically at who's in our community and ask them to be our mentor. We can ask literally anybody. Hey, what thoughts do you have about mentoring and coaching, if any?
I think it's funny that you mentioned him, because I mentioned on a previous episode he's my favorite speaker, and I have messaged him on Facebook several times and Instagram, and I'm like, please listen to me, respond to me. But so no, I do think even like the live seminars. So I've seen on Facebook, that's how I'm doing the life coach certification. There's like millions of them that are out right now that you can just like log into a Zoom, link and be able to do those things. So I think it opens up so much more opportunity. In that sample, Tony Robbins does the seminars, and that sucks that some of them got shut down, but there's still so many different opportunities to learn. And I think one of the beautiful things about that is we do have these share screens, or we can do even trainings virtual here. We have new systems up and coming for the recruiting team, at least. There's going to be a really good opportunity that we don't need to put people in a room if they don't want to be there. We can just open up our screen and show them how to do things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. I mean, it's been different because sometimes it is nicer to be around in a meeting. But I also think in a way that keeps things more controlled too, because people can't just like yell and interrupt. So we've seen like attitudes, some not here specifically, but sometimes I've seen like a lot of like even fights and like little bickering and stuff happening just because of people want to get through the presentation and they're not able to. So I think that makes it more organized, where you have to like take yourself off of mute and raise your hand or whatever the case is. So I think I think that's a really fun opportunity, and it gives so much more room for growth.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity to expand outside of your little bubble that you live in your I think a lot of companies, even NavAir, would totally benefit from a mentoring program that was outside of, we tend to mentor within our own offices. But if now we could mentor to somebody. We're in Maryland. We could mentor somebody in California.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and that is, and coaching for a work life, and inspiring other young people or older people to be the best of who they can be is so important.
Yeah, and the one point that I just thought of, kind of along those same lines, is like education wise. So kind of mentoring and coaching, but you're still learning. So I don't know why I was looking at this the other day, but I was looking at the Syracuse Law Program, and they actually offer a 100% well, I would say like 95% online program for your law degree now. The one caveat is there's like these short, and I forget exactly what they call them, but these short time frames where you actually have to go, they're basically seminars, and you have to be there in person. So there's like 6 over this like 3 or 4 year program that you have to make the trip. It's like 3 days in Syracuse. So there are these very specific courses that they want you to take at the campus and with face to face. So I see a lot of things going down that same line where it's like, okay, we might have this online program, but there are going to be these certain topics that we want to talk about face to face. Again, mentoring, to tie that back, could go along the same lines. You're doing a lot of virtual mentoring, but maybe there's once every while where you're meeting up in person and having that face to face discussion with your mentor or coach. Any last minute thoughts? Or I think what we mostly talked about is that you're going to need to be a master of the virtual space after the pandemic, because none of us see that going away anytime soon. Anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, just training.
Yep.
Just, make sure that, if you are going to use it, you know how to use it. And if your teammates know how to use it, and have somebody at your disposal. If you don't know how to train somebody up, to have somebody at your disposal to do that.
Yeah.
Very important, because you can fall behind or feel left out very quickly.
Yeah.
And this is,
I think just take advantage of the opportunity, because it's a completely different world that we're in, but it's a lot of opportunity. There's
Yeah.
so much room for different things that you can learn and you can do, and I think taking advantage of it now, before or if things ever do go back to normal, it's a really good time. And going back to the training and even the education, I think that you just have more time now to be able to do that. Like you don't have to drive somewhere for a seminar or drive somewhere for a training. You can just spend that hour after you're done with dinner, or once you put the kids to bed, or whatever the case is, to just get that stuff done. So I would just say take advantage of it and use it when you can.
Yeah. And as always, I had a point and I forgot what it was. That's pretty much how
sorry.
these go. All right, so let's wrap this up. I know what the point was. Again, that's always how it goes.
I'm
so
gonna make you a shirt that
we're
says
just, that sounds like a great idea. Who else would buy that shirt?
I feel like it would be really popular.
All right, so my point here was that, like you were saying, there's a ton of opportunity going on. You can literally work for a Silicon Valley company, making a Silicon Valley salary, and live in like someplace that has a low income. I'm top of my head, I'm going to say like North Carolina, because they're not income, cost of living. Their cost of living is lower than it is in Maryland, at least. So you could be even working for a Maryland company, making Maryland salary, and living in a place where the cost of living is a little bit less than what it would be in Maryland. So tons of opportunity. The main, like I said already, I think the main takeaway is that virtual is not going away anytime soon, even after the pandemic ends. And it'll be very interesting to see how it all goes. So Megan, Val, thank you for joining me today, and I will see everybody next time.